My name's Tyler. I'm 27, and I guess if you asked my family, they'd say I'm the serious one. I don't drink much. I'm not really into loud parties, and honestly, I'm the guy who gets stuck organizing everything because he's so responsible. At least, that's what they tell me, until it's time to actually appreciate it. This Easter was supposed to be different. For once, I thought maybe I'd actually feel like I belonged instead of feeling like the hired help they forgot to pay. It started a few weeks back. My dad, Frank, called me up out of the blue. We're not super close. Haven't been since he remarried, but he sounded chipper, almost eager. Big Easter this year, he said. Everyone's coming. Thought you could help get things ready. At first, I was just happy he even thought to include me. Sad, I know, but that's how low the bar's been set over the years. He rattled off a list: tables, chairs, food, decorations, something for the kids, maybe an egg hunt. And I said, sure, no problem. I had some extra cash saved up, and deep down, I wanted to believe this was a real invitation, not just another favor wrapped in fake enthusiasm. So I got to work. I reserved tables and chairs from a rental company 2 towns over. I ordered catering, nothing too fancy, but definitely good enough to make people happy. I even bought dozens of plastic eggs, filled them with candy, and mapped out a little egg hunt across my dad's massive backyard. Every spare minute I had that week was spent planning. I even printed little place cards for the tables. I told myself it would be worth it, that maybe this time they'd see me as part of the family instead of just a background character. The morning of Easter, I woke up early and loaded my car with supplies. I drove the 45 minutes to my dad's place, getting there before anyone else. I spent the whole morning setting up, lugging tables into the backyard, arranging chairs, setting out centerpieces, double-checking the catering orders. By the time noon rolled around, I was sweaty, sore, and completely exhausted, but proud. It looked beautiful, like a real family event, not just some thrown-together potluck. Kids started arriving with their parents, darting around and laughing as they spotted the colorful eggs tucked away behind flower pots and beneath trees. For a moment, just a moment, I let myself believe I had done something good. Then came lunch. Everyone gathered around the tables, laughing and chatting. I sat down next to my half-sister, Emily. She's 16, quiet, way more aware of things than she lets on. As we passed around plates and shared stories, I noticed my dad standing up, tapping his glass for attention. Before we dig in, he said, raising his beer, I just want to say it's amazing to have everyone together. Real family, you know? Feels like old times. People cheered, clinking glasses. I smiled awkwardly, not sure whether he meant to include me or not. That's when it happened. He turned toward me, almost like he just remembered I was there, and laughed, loud enough for everyone to hear. And let's not forget Tyler, our extra. Try not to get in the way today, champ. His words landed like a punch to the gut. My stepmom, Sharon, gave this smug little smirk and sipped her drink without a word. A few people chuckled politely. Emily looked down at her plate. I didn't say a thing. I didn't cry or argue or storm out. I just stood up, quietly, calmly. I didn't even grab my plate. I walked through the yard, past the tables and decorations I had set up, past the egg hunt prizes and the coolers of drinks I had bought, all the way to my car parked in the driveway. As I sat there with the door open, keys in my hand, a slow burn started in my chest. Not the kind of white-hot anger that makes you do stupid things. No, this was cold, sharp, focused. I realized something in that moment. They didn't see me as family. They never did. To them, I was just useful. Until I wasn't. Until it was more convenient to humiliate me than to thank me. And that's when I made my decision. I pulled out my phone and opened up the rental contracts. Every table and chair out there? My name was on the agreement. The catering order? Paid for with my card. Even the egg hunt? I had the receipts. Every single thing they were enjoying depended on me, and if they thought I was just an extra, they were about to find out exactly how important that extra had been. I called the rental company first. Thankfully, I knew the owner personally. Small towns have their perks. I explained that the event hosts were being disrespectful and that I needed the equipment picked up immediately. He didn't even question it. Said he'd send a truck within the hour. Next, I called the catering company and asked them to stop delivering any more trays of food. Turns out, they hadn't even brought out the desserts yet: cakes, cookies, chocolate fountains, the big finish everyone was waiting for. I told them to cancel it. Refund wasn't possible at this point, but honestly, I didn't care. Let them figure it out. Finally, I walked around to the side of the house where I had hidden the grand prize for the egg hunt, a huge basket full of toys, candy, and gift cards for the kids. I grabbed it, tossed it into my car, and shut the door. I sat there for a second, engine running, watching the party in the backyard from a distance. Watching as the kids ran up to the prize table, finding it empty. Watching as Sharon's face pinched with confusion when the catering guy stopped coming back with more food. Watching as my dad started looking around, frowning, clearly sensing that something was very, very wrong. I could have stayed. I could have watched the whole thing unfold from the sidelines. But I didn't. I backed out of the driveway slowly, savoring the moment, and drove off without a word. No angry texts. No tearful confrontation. Just silence. Of course, that wasn't the end of it. Not even close. But that was the moment, the one where it all started to crumble, where everything they had relied on, everything they had taken for granted, began slipping right through their fingers. And I wasn't even there to see the chaos when it finally hit. The first call came about 15 minutes after I turned onto the highway. I let it ring. Then another, then another. My dad, Sharon, my step-uncle, even Emily, though her message was just a quiet, "Tyler, I think something's wrong. Please call me." I almost answered hers, but not yet. Not until the others learned a lesson they couldn't ignore or sweep under the rug like they always did. I pulled into the parking lot of a little diner just off the exit, the kind of place where the vinyl booths squeak when you sit down and the coffee tastes like it's been sitting on the burner a few hours too long. I ordered a burger and a Coke and sat by the window where I could scroll through the flood of messages lighting up my phone. Some were almost comical. Dad texted, "Tyler, where are you? The tables are gone. What is going on?" Sharon texted, "If this is your idea of a joke, it's not funny. Bring everything back now." Dad texted, "You're embarrassing yourself. Get back here and fix this." Dad again, "Grow up." It was almost funny, watching their messages slide from confusion to anger to veiled insults, and then, gradually, into panic. Sharon texted, "The kids are crying. There's no food left. The parents are getting mad." Dad texted, "The rental company showed up. They're taking everything. You need to get here before it's all gone." I scrolled lazily through them, sipping my Coke. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. They were doing a fantastic job digging their own grave without any help from me. For once in my life, I wasn't going to be the one patching things up after they ruined everything with their arrogance. Another call buzzed through, this one from my Aunt Karen. I rejected it and opened the group chat where they were all frantically coordinating. Karen texted, "Does anyone have extra chairs?" Uncle Rob texted, "The food's almost gone." Sharon said no dessert is coming. Sharon texted, "This is humiliating. People are leaving." Dad texted, "Where is Tyler?" I leaned back against the booth and smiled to myself. It was almost poetic. The perfect family Easter they had bragged about for weeks gone. Shattered by the very person they had written off as just an extra. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Emily, and unlike the others, it actually made me hesitate. "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. Please just let me know you're okay." A knot twisted in my chest. Emily wasn't like the rest of them. She never had been. She didn't laugh when Dad mocked me. She didn't smirk like Sharon. She had sat there, face flushed with embarrassment, unable to meet my eyes. And now she was reaching out, probably stuck there in the middle of the disaster, feeling as out of place as I always did. For a second, I thought about going back, just for her. But no, I couldn't. Not this time. If I went back now, I'd be undoing the one thing I had finally managed to do, stand up for myself. For once, I wasn't going to be their fallback plan. Instead, I typed out a short reply. "I'm okay. Don't worry about me." Then, after a second's thought, I added, "You're better than all of them, Em. Don't let them change that." I set my phone face down on the table and finished my meal at my own pace, ignoring the way it kept buzzing and vibrating every few seconds. I paid in cash, left a tip twice as big as the bill, and walked out into the warm afternoon air feeling lighter than I had in years. When I finally pulled into my driveway an hour later, the buzzing had finally stopped. I figured they had either given up or moved on to blaming each other for the chaos. Knowing my dad and Sharon, it was probably a spectacular screaming match with plenty of finger-pointing and zero accountability. I dropped my keys on the counter, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto the couch. For the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like a failure. I just felt free. It was late that evening when the real fallout started hitting. I was flipping through channels, half watching a documentary about deep-sea fishing, when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a Facebook notification. Sharon had posted a furious status, tagging almost every family member we had. Some people are so selfish and petty they'd ruin a family holiday just for attention. If you know who you are, I'm done with you. The comments were a dumpster fire. Aunt Karen commented, "Oh my God, what happened?" Uncle Rob commented, "You're better off without toxic people, Sharon." Some cousin I barely knew. Family is supposed to be there for each other, not sabotage everything. For a moment, I considered replying. I even typed out a few drafts in my head. But in the end, I just turned my phone off and tossed it onto the coffee table. Let them twist themselves into knots trying to explain why the party they bragged about for months collapsed around their ears. They could rewrite the story all they wanted online. The people who were actually there? They knew. They saw the tables disappearing. They saw the food stop coming. They saw Sharon's fake smile crack and my dad storming around like an angry toddler. No Facebook rant could erase that. I thought that would be the end of it. That they'd just stay mad, maybe ice me out of family events, like I cared, and eventually move on. I was wrong. Because the next day, the situation escalated into something none of us could have predicted. And when it did, it wasn't just my dad and Sharon facing the consequences, it was the entire family. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating violently against the coffee table. It wasn't the normal trickle of notifications either. This was constant, like a swarm of bees buzzing angrily just out of reach. Groggy, I sat up and grabbed it, expecting more petty Facebook drama. Maybe another rage post from Sharon. Maybe some pathetic guilt tripping from Dad. It wasn't just that. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, from people I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, second cousins, even a couple of family friends I barely remembered from childhood barbecues. It was like the whole extended family tree had suddenly remembered my number overnight. Some of the messages were short and panicked. "Tyler, call me." While others were longer, angrier, full of accusations I didn't even understand yet. Confused, I opened one from my cousin Jake first. "Dude, what did you do?" "Grandpa's furious. He's pulling his donations. He's cutting Dad off. Sharon's losing her mind. Call me." "Grandpa?" I blinked at the screen. Grandpa Harold was my dad's dad, wealthy, old school, and the undisputed patriarch of the family. The man basically funded half of my aunts and uncles' lifestyles through a combination of guilt money and sheer stubbornness. And while he wasn't the warmest guy, he hated public embarrassment. To him, family gatherings were business, a chance to show off a united, perfect front to the world. And apparently, yesterday's disaster hadn't just ruined Easter. It had gotten back to him. Another message came in while I was reading Jake's, this time from Aunt Linda, Dad's sister, who never texted me unless she needed something. She texted, "You are so selfish. I hope you're happy. Grandpa says the whole summer house thing is off. Thanks for ruining everything." I stared at my phone, trying to piece it together. Summer house? A few months ago, there had been talk about Grandpa helping Dad and Sharon, along with a few of the other important family members, buy a beach house they could all use, meaning, of course, that I wouldn't have seen so much as a doormat unless they needed someone to clean up after them. Grandpa had apparently agreed, in principle, to front the money if they could show they were responsible enough to manage it. Responsible, public image, respectability. And then they threw a family Easter where half the guests left early, the food ran out, the kids cried, and the rental company showed up like repo men in the middle of the egg hunt. I scrolled down farther to a screenshot someone had sent me, an email chain between Grandpa Harold and my dad, copied to half the family. Grandpa Harold said, "Frank, after hearing about the absolute debacle that took place yesterday, I have decided to reconsider any financial support for future ventures. It is clear to me that there is a severe lack of leadership, planning, and basic respect within this family. Until such issues are addressed, I will be withdrawing offers of assistance, effective immediately." Ouch. Underneath it was my dad's frantic reply, groveling, making excuses, blaming unforeseen circumstances, even trying to subtly pin it on me by claiming I had abandoned my responsibilities. And Grandpa's brutal one-line response, "Leadership means solving problems, not blaming others." I let out a low whistle. For a man who usually wrote like he was dictating a 19th century business memo, that was basically a flamethrower. It all started making sense now. The desperation in the calls, the sheer panic flooding my inbox. They weren't upset because they missed the tables and chairs. They were upset because the money, the privilege, the image they worshipped, all crumbled because they couldn't resist taking one cheap shot at me in front of a crowd. The irony would have been delicious if it wasn't so pathetic. And speaking of pathetic, Dad finally cracked and sent me a direct message around noon. Tyler, we need to talk. I know things got out of hand yesterday, but you can't just disappear when family needs you. We can fix this. Grandpa just needs to see we're united. Let's meet. We'll explain everything. You'll apologize, and we can move on. I read it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. I would apologize? The man who laughed at me, who humiliated me in front of everyone, who treated my hard work like it was less valuable than background noise. I needed to apologize? It was so absurd it almost made me laugh out loud. I didn't respond. Not to him, not to Sharon, not to any of them. Instead, I turned off my phone and went about my day. I took a walk, grabbed some ice cream from the corner shop, watched some stupid comedy show on Netflix. It was the most peaceful Easter Monday I'd had in years. But the story didn't end there. Because later that night, when I finally turned my phone back on, I found a voicemail from Emily. She sounded small, hesitant. Hey, Tyler, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for what happened. I tried to stand up for you, but they wouldn't listen. Grandpa's really mad. Dad's blaming you for everything, but I know it's not your fault. I'm scared they're going to try something. Just be careful, okay? That last part stuck with me. Try something? At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she meant they'd just double down on the guilt tripping or the smear campaign. But something about her tone, tight, scared, like she knew something I didn't, kept gnawing at me. And it turned out, Emily was right to worry. Because the next move my dad and Sharon pulled, it wasn't just petty. It was war. And this time, they were about to learn that I wasn't the same extra they could shove around anymore. I didn't sleep much that night after hearing Emily's message. Her voice kept playing over and over in my head, the fear threading through every word. By morning, I decided, no more waiting. If my family was planning something, I needed to be ready. I spent the first part of the day getting my ducks in a row. I backed up every text, every voicemail, every receipt showing I had paid for the Easter event. I made copies of the rental contracts and catering orders. I even pulled bank statements showing the charges. If they wanted a war, I wasn't going to stumble into it blind. Around noon, I got my first clue about what they were up to. A letter slipped into my mailbox. No stamp. Hand-delivered. My stomach sank when I saw the sender scrawled across the top, Frank Patterson, my dad. I opened it right there on the porch. It wasn't handwritten. No, this was typed up like some kind of official notice. And it was absurd. It accused me of sabotaging a family event, causing reputational damage, and I almost laughed at this one. Theft of family property, referencing the egg hunt prizes I had removed from the backyard. They were threatening small claims court for a basket of candy and dollar store toys. I walked back inside, laughing under my breath. It was so desperate, so embarrassing, that I almost felt bad for them. Almost. But then I remembered Sharon's smirk. My dad's mocking laugh. The way no one, not one adult in that backyard, had said a single word in my defense. They hadn't treated me like family. They treated me like a tool, a joke. And now they wanted to drag me to court to save face? Fine. I could play that game. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I consulted a lawyer, not some high-priced shark, just a local guy I knew through a friend who specialized in petty lawsuits and nonsense like this. He laughed when I showed him the letter, called it the legal equivalent of a temper tantrum. He helped me draft a formal response, attached all my documentation, and informed them that if they pursued this, I'd be countersuing for reimbursement of expenses, defamation, and emotional distress. And because I'm a thorough guy when I'm angry, I also drafted a detailed letter to Grandpa Harold. No bitterness, no name calling, just a clear timeline of events, copies of receipts, proof that I paid for everything, and a calm explanation that I had removed property I legally owned after being publicly humiliated. 2 days later, the lawsuit threat quietly disappeared. No apology, of course. No acknowledgement. Just silence. They thought if they slithered away without fanfare, maybe I'd let it go. But the damage was already done. Grandpa Harold called me personally that Sunday. At first, I almost didn't answer. I stared at the screen until it nearly timed out. But curiosity got the better of me. Tyler, he said gruffly when I picked up. I received your letter. I waited. I want you to know, he continued, that you handled yourself with more dignity than the rest of them combined. I'm sorry you were put in that position. It wasn't warm. It wasn't effusive. Grandpa Harold didn't do emotional apologies. But coming from him, it was monumental. He cleared his throat. There will be some changes coming. I've reevaluated some of my plans. We didn't talk long. Grandpa wasn't one for long chats. But when I hung up, my hands were shaking. It wasn't just vindication. It was something deeper. I had spent so long chasing their approval, waiting for someone to see me, not as an extra, not as an afterthought, but as someone who mattered. And now? Now they would have no choice. The fallout was immediate and brutal. A few weeks later, I started hearing whispers through the family grapevine. Grandpa had rewritten parts of his will. Not dramatically, he was still leaving some things to his children, but with significant reductions. Large portions were now earmarked for charities, and a separate trust fund was being set up for the younger grandchildren, Emily included, completely bypassing Sharon, Dad, and their inner circle. The summer house project? Dead. Annual family vacations Grandpa used to fund? Canceled indefinitely. Worse for them. Anyway, Grandpa made it very clear that future financial support would be performance-based, meaning no more blank checks. If they wanted help, they would have to prove they could handle responsibility without embarrassing the family name. And guess who he appointed as the trustee to help oversee the grandchildren's fund? Me. Tyler, the extra. The news hit the family like a meteor. I didn't gloat. I didn't post passive-aggressive Facebook statuses or send smug texts. I just lived my life. Quietly. Peacefully. Finally free of the invisible leash they had kept me on for years. Emily texted me a few times after that. She was careful not to say too much, probably worried someone would check her phone, but her messages were kind. Grateful. She told me she was proud of me, that she wanted to be better than the environment she grew up in. I believed her. We started meeting up sometimes for coffee. Quiet chats about her plans for college, her dreams of getting away from the toxicity she had grown up in. I helped her set up a savings account, helped her research scholarships. Little things. Things nobody else in that family would ever bother with unless there was a photo op attached. As for the rest of them, I haven't heard a word from Sharon or my dad in months. Not a birthday card. Not a Christmas text. Not a single fake thinking of you post. It's like I vanished from their universe. Good. Let them sit in the wreckage they built with their own hands. Let them explain to anyone who asked why the family golden child wasn't around anymore. Let them stew in the knowledge that the person they treated like background noise was the one who finally turned off the music. Sometimes I drive past Dad's house on my way home from work. Not to snoop. Just because. The backyard still has tire tracks where the rental company tore up the grass hauling away the tables and chairs. The garden's overgrown. The place looks sad. Empty. I don't smile when I see it. But I don't feel bad either. I gave them every chance. Every opportunity to treat me like family. They made their choice. And I made mine. I'm not the extra anymore. I'm the one who walked away. And this time, I'm never going back.